Hello and welcome to Jack Knives Reviews. I'm of course your host, Jack Knives. And would you look at the time? It's time for Jack-O-Ween. All throughout the month of October, I'm going to be doing reviews of things that are either involving the horrors of the flesh or the horrors of the soul, or it could even be a combination of the two. And before I start that, I first want to go into my annual top list. But this year, I have two, all from the same franchise. Before I get into the list, I want you to think back in a time that many of you may not even have been alive. That feeling of going through a video store, the feeling of seeing the imagery, or if you didn't see the imagery, just imagining what was there. And sometimes you can even see them in the retro shop. You would see something like this. This year's annual list, I'm going to be doing a two-parter of the VHS franchise, from worst to best. This one will be part 1 of 2, because before we get to the best, we gotta go through the worst. As per all of my top lists, there's certain criteria that I always adhere to. Number 1, each VHS franchise only gets 1 per entry, as in there are 6 movies to date, with a 7th on the way, so there will only be 6 entries for the worst and 6 entries for the best, to determine which are the worst and which are the best. I rank them off of what is the actual worst segments, not necessarily the quality or the time in which they were made. And number 2, I will not be counting the wraparound segments or the beginning of the segments that entangle them all together. I don't consider those a segment or story, even if they have a flowing story. Those are more to just get the audience hooked and to essentially be the gatekeeper of the stories. So with that in mind, these are the 6 worst segments of the VHS franchise.
Clinical Trial from VHS 2.
VHS 2 is arguably considered by many that love the franchise like myself as the best of the entire franchise thus far. And this, unfortunately, is the black sheep of that film. And being directed by Adam Wingard, who made The Guest, You're Next, Blair Witch, and the new Godzilla vs. Kong movies, there is obviously some great filmmaking here. There's great visuals, there's great ideas, it's just maybe a little too sci-fi-y. Cochlear implants and weird possessions. It's a little bland. It's not bad. The fact that it's all in a POV setting is great. Not that they don't do later sci-fi better in the franchise, but this one was just kind of eh. And because of that, it gets to the bottom of the worst. As in, it's tolerable, so it gets a pass.
The Empty Wake from VHS 94.
Simon Barrett directed this, and he's primarily known for being a writer and producer, and because of that, he doesn't really know what he's doing behind the camera, and it goes to show. Primarily, most of his stuff is known with working with Adam Wingard, so it's more of Adam Wingard being in charge, and considering he was on the last number, I mean, he's got potential. There's a lot of things in here that I do enjoy. For instance, the setup, the build-up, the anticipation, and it kind of just keeps that pace. It just stays at a steady pace, which I'm just kind of like, okay. Also, the creature in the thing was just boring. Interesting looking, visually fantastic, but just boring. And I was kind of expecting a little more. It was not really doing it for me.
The Sick Thing That Happened to Emily When She Was Younger, from VHS.
I don't know why Simon Barrett keeps appearing on this list, but he's also a longtime collaborator with Joe Swanberg, the one who directed this, and it gave me Unfriended vibes, for better or for worse. I didn't really care for that movie, and I certainly didn't care for this segment. Sure, the concept is interesting, but it feels like one that could not be past the infancy stage. It is clearly designed to be a short segment, and I would like it if it could have done more, beside the fact that the main woman is carrying the entire weight of this segment. She's not bad, but she's not great at acting either. But the guy is so bland. And yes, I'm aware that it's intentional, but it still doesn't negate the fact that the guy could have at least put a little more emphasis and a little more, whoa. It took away from the reality of the situation. And I know the twist at the end, which it's bad. It's a stupid twist. Not as stupid as other twists, but this one did, when I first saw the first VHS movie, really pissed me off. I was really infuriated because I'm like, it might as well have been the "it was all a dream" stereotype that constantly renegates all storytelling. It was similar to that, but if you're a screenwriter, you know the other trope that it probably is. It is that. Take that as you will. Could have been salvaged? Probably.
The Gawkers, from VHS 99.
This took the last segment, the disappointment from the last segment, to a monstrous extreme. Like a higher extreme than this segment was directed by Tyler McIntyre, who I know as directing It's a Wonderful Knife. I've yet to review that film because it's very bland, and I might do it in December, maybe. Lazy twist of the last one. This segment has a dumb twist, which asks the question, if you were to read or watch a story, would you rather the twist be really, really lazy or really, really stupid? For me, I'd take lazy over stupid any day. Twist in this, I will admit, I didn't see coming. But I also wouldn't imagine a giant snowman either. You shouldn't leave a segment asking more questions than you do, which also will be a reoccurring thing in this list.
TKNOGD from VHS 85.
This segment felt like time filler. It didn't really need to be what it was, and it looked bad, like from every aspect of angle. Not just the fact that they're using dated CGI or dated VR style polygons. This segment, I was legit shocked, was directed by Natasha Kermani, because I've seen Imitation Girl and Lucky, which are good movies. And for her to make this, I'm like, whatever they were paying you, they weren't paying you enough. It was bad effects, bad story device, bad acting, horrible rendered polygons, and even worse visual special effects. The part where her helmet gets taken off and you see her aftermath, it looks straight out of a Gwar concert, and I'm like, really? Really? Like, that's the best you guys can do? You're what, 5 movies in? This is what you get? This is what you got now? 5 movies in? This is what you guys have come up with? Okay. It was clear to me watching it that they just wanted to get a segment out there for them to fill the void of gap between the next segment and the previous segment, and it felt like a filler. It was so cheesy, I almost felt like it could have been R-rated Are You Afraid of the Dark segment. Like, that's how bad it was. Nothing against Are You Afraid of the Dark. Kudos to them. It just felt like they were trying to make an Are You Afraid of the Dark version, but it's like R. So it's like someone who doesn't understand scary shit trying to make it scary for like adults. Bad from beginning to end. But it's not the worst. Not by a long shot.
Parallel Monsters from VHS Viral.
You knew it was bad when you looked up the IMDb of Nacho Vigalondo, because his biggest claim to fame, which is a movie I have watched called Open Windows, which is a straight-to-DVD thriller starring Elijah Woods and Sasha Grey. The less I say about that, the better. What the hell was anyone thinking making this? This is the worst VHS movie of the franchise and the worst VHS segment of the franchise. In fact, a lot of people, after this third movie came out, thought, oh, the franchise is dead. It lost its momentum. Only for VHS 94 to actually shock everyone and show how freaking good it is. And it's arguably almost better than VHS 2. I personally like 94, close to 2, but a little more favorable for the nostalgic factor. But I digress. I'm going to do something I'm not going to probably do in any of the other ones. I'm going to try not to spoil any other segments, but this one I have no problems at all spoiling for you. So in Parallel Monsters, this man goes to another realm, which is almost a mirror dimension of his, and his wife has what I can only describe as a Cthulhu-gina. And not just her, apparently everyone has a Cthulhu genitals. Like, weird. Why? I don't know. The fact that this segment was even made, which granted, there are ways to do something like this where it's like, oh, it's another person and it's another, you know, you could do something like this. I could see this happening in certain horror contexts where it can work proper if you have the right proper pacing, story, director, and everything. This had none of that. This screamed trauma. This screamed straight out of a trauma film trying to be serious. This is a person who went to the trauma film of screw it, do what we want, and got a bigger budget to do so. That's what this segment is. And it is so awfully bad that it is synonymous with this movie, and that people really thought, just off of this one segment, that the franchise was dead. A lot of people thought that when this came out. And I can't say I blame them, because it is really frickin' bad. It is really frickin' stupid. I hated it. I hated every bit of it. Why would you put this on camera? Why would you? The fact that people were filmed doing this, the fact that people were there doing it, the fact that so many things happened to make this possible, it drives me nuts. Well, that's it for part 1, but stay tuned to part 2 for the best of the VHS franchise. Till next time.